Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the final part of our How to Make an Avatar series. I mentioned this in the previous video, but if you have not seen that, just want to apologize in advance if you hear any background noise. I have been coming down with what I'm assuming is a cold, and my throat's gotten pretty sore, so I'm not able to talk very loudly, so I turned up my volume for these videos that I'm releasing today, so I apologize if you hear background noise. So for the final video, we are going to be just kind of running through doing any final test in Emulator, which I've covered in the past few videos, but I just wanted to kind of go through it just one more time just to be extra safe, as well as how to upload to VRChat, as well as how to export the package, and double checking TOS on any of the shaders or add-ons that you're using to make sure how to handle that if it's not allowed to be exported commercially. So just kind of the last few things for the avatar. The videos prior to this was the last one of how to actually make the avatar, so this is just kind of the final finishing touches to kind of wrap up the series nice and neat here. After this, I will move on to other tutorials of just other things that people have been asking for, whether it's in Blender or Unity. So as always, if you have any recommendations of anything that you would like to see a tutorial on, please let me know in the comments down below or in my Discord server, and I will do my best to make as many tutorials for you guys as I can based off of your requests. But this is the final video on the How to Make an Avatar series for basics. Like I kind of mentioned in the last video, there's a lot more that can be done for making avatars, as far as like contact animations, adding particles, adding DPS, adding different types of sliders or dissolve toggles, things like that. And I'll probably make videos for those at some point. I think at one point in the tutorial series I mentioned that I was planning on making a DPS video. But right now, with my health not doing the best, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the series here. I'll make a tutorial on how to add DPS, hopefully whenever I come back from my vacation, hopefully, which is supposed to be next week. And so I'll still be planning on releasing that video at some point. It's just not going to be this week, so I apologize for that. But yeah, if there's anything more advanced than the basic, that goes into avatar creation that you would like to see, do let me know. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get started on the final touches of your avatar. Okay, so in the last video we covered making facial expressions, and I mentioned that that's pretty much the last thing that it comes into as far as the basics of how to make an avatar. We've done the toggles, we've done the missions, we've covered matte swaps, and now the facial expressions and fizz bones are all done, so I just kind of want to cover one more time how to test in Unity with the emulator, how to upload, and then as far as how to export, and we'll cover a little bit of what goes into all of that as well. So just a quick reminder, if you want to test in-game, you have to install the emulator. I will say, I mentioned this in the last video as well, on one of my other projects, it had mentioned that it wasn't wanting to run the emulator without having Gesture Manager installed, which is interesting because this isn't a different emulator between this avatar and the other one. But if you ever get an error like that, you have to install it through Creator Companion, so it's on your, whenever you first make a project, or you go to your Manage package, and it's right here. Gesture Manager is what it's talking about. You would just want to install it this way. So I just wanted to toss it out there in case anyone does run into an issue with emulator. But as you can see on this project, I imported it manually and it's been acting fine since. So to test her just one last time, we're going to go ahead and go into play mode, and it's going to take a minute to load, and I apologize for the wait here. Editing videos is something that I would like to learn. I'm just not very good at it, and the YouTube editor for some reason is giving me a lot of problems. So go ahead and go into play mode, go to tools and enable, and she's going to go into her normal standing pose that you see in desktop. So you'll click on your avatar, and of course you have all of your toggles here that you can double check through, and we can see and kind of check everything. Oh, I deleted that one. I forgot. I haven't fully finished her on my end for how I want her finalized to be, so I forgot I had deleted that because she's not actually going to have a mask swap there. But my point still stands. You'll click on your avatar and you'll see all your toggles here with all your menus. You'll just go through and check those, even with the radial options. Sorry for the kind of flash there. And then for facial expressions, you'll scroll down here to where it says built-in input / visine. Or I'm sorry, built-in input / hand gestures. And you can click them from here. Or you can use the slider, which I have not added all her facial expressions, but that's okay. So that's how you'll test your toggles and your facial expressions. And of course, if you ever wanted to test your fizz bones, you just click her and drag, and you can test your fizz bones. So you do not have to have the emulator though to test your fizz bones. So once you've kind of done all your tests in Unity, you can upload her. Let's say you get her uploaded to VRChat though, and you realize that there's some clipping. Clipping, of course, has to be fixed in Blender. So let's say you come back into Blender, you do some fixing, you're like, okay, let's say the harness was clipping. Alright, I've sculpted that out, I fixed it, but you don't want to have to redo everything, right? So that's, of course, understandable. What you're going to do is you're going to go into Blender after you've done your updates, and you're going to export. So this is what the original FBX, of course, that we exported a few weeks back is called. So let's just add like a 2. You can name it whatever you want to. Just make sure that you're exporting it as a brand new FBX, so you would want to name it different than exporting it as the same FBX. What you're going to do is you're going to come in here. Let me find her. There it is, number 2. And you'll drag that in just like you did before. And this is primarily what I kind of wanted to focus on this video, which is how to use the Pumkins tool. So it's really, really helpful. Like I said, if you have to go back into Blender for any reason, do any changes or anything, so that you don't have to redo everything, you can copy over from what you've already done onto the new avatar and just reassign the materials. Now, I've had some people recently in my server asking for how to add hair and stuff into Unity. Personally, I've never really heard that that's the best way to do it, because of like weight painting and stuff to the head, as well as it depends on what the bones were named. Like if they didn't name it head bone, if they named it like hair root bone, that could potentially cause issues. Technically what you would want to do, from what I've looked into, is you would want to take all of these bones and add it underneath head, but I've always recommended to add things like hair and clothing in Blender just to help with weight painting, make sure that it's working properly. It is possible to add things in Unity, but this is kind of what I've been trying to explain to some of the people that have been asking those kinds of questions, is you'd have to take the avatar out of Unity, get in Blender, and then put it all back together. So that's what this process is putting things from the avatar that's already been created from Unity to a new FBX in Blender. It's kind of the same thing, but this is why it can get a little tricky, because you do have to reassign some stuff. So this is our new FBX. We named it number 2. So let's go ahead and move this one, which is our original, over, because we're not going to be using this one. We're going to be using this one, in theory. So as you can see, nothing's like, it's just like it was whenever we first imported it, right? So you'll have to do the same thing. You'll want to change it to humanoid, apply it, configure it, just like we did at the very start of our series. You'll have to set up the configuration again, make sure that the chest bone is assigned, make sure that the jawbone is removed. I'm going to go ahead and do that because I don't think Pumkins will work without us doing this. And I apologize, it's going to take a while. Go ahead and close that out while we wait. I'm so sorry to make you guys wait. Like I said, YouTube editor for cutting videos is, for some reason, like, hardcore not wanting to work. for me. I'm having to reach out to YouTube. Anyway, so just like we did before, oops. Okay, and then let's add our toes back. This is right foot and this is left foot, and apply. And this is why I don't always recommend, if you're like purchasing an avatar and you're wanting to like change clothing, if you're not really sure how to do all that, I would suggest reaching out to the creator to get their advice on how to do that. I'm personally not the most comfortable with explaining how to take a bot avatar out of Unity and back into Blender, because that can lead to easily like doing some leaking and ripping, which I'm not accusing anybody of, but I do know that there are people out there like that, and I just don't want one of them to come across my tutorial and learn that. So I would suggest, if you want to do that, reach out to the creator. They might be able to help you or tell you how they're most comfortable. But if you're doing that, or if you're making your own avatar and you need to go back into Blender, this is a very, very, very helpful tool. So once you get her reset back up, and that's another thing, you have to kind of know how the avatar was set up to make sure that you're doing it correctly. So once you have her configured again, you'll come up to Tools, Pumpkin, and this is assuming you have the Pumpkins thing added, which if you're not too sure how to get that, just search up Pumkins tool GitHub on Google and it should pop right up for you. So it's Tools, Pumpkin, hello, Avatar Tools. It'll pop up this. So this first spot that says Avatar, this is the one that you're wanting to use. So we're going to use our newest FBX because that's the one we're wanting to copy things over to. There's a lot that you can do with Pumkins tool, and I highly recommend joining their server for any further questions on the more advanced things you can do with this. I personally haven't messed with it myself, but there are things, really cool things you can do. You can mess with the scale, you can do blend shapes, fill visemes, which is how your mouth moves, eye bones, all kinds of cool stuff. For this tutorial, I'm just going to kind of focus on how to copy over your like fizz bones, toggles, all that kind of stuff. So you'll scroll down to where it says copy components. You'll put in the old avatar, so the one that you've already edited, but this one, the number 2, has the like the fixed clipping or something, right? You can of course check mark and uncheck mark what you do and don't want. I just leave it as it is, and then you hit copy selected, and ta-da! As you can see, it copied over all of her fizz bones so far, and it's set the meshes turned off and on to what this one is. It copied over her viewport, her colliders, her fizz bones, copied over everything that we've done so far, except you'll notice first off, no materials, and also there's no clothing thing for our toggle that we made for that, but it did duplicate the duplicates that we made here. So what you can do, you can just delete that. You can click on your old one, right click and unpack prefab completely. That'll let you move this out, and then you can drag that no clothing back onto her, and it's now duplicated as it would be, so it's still going to work with the toggles that we made for the no clothing option. The reason I suggest doing that instead of redoing it is just in case you accidentally add any extra spacing or the capitalization is different, it won't register on the toggles that we made. So that's why I recommend using the same one that we had on the original avatar. That way you know for sure that that toggle is going to work. So we can go ahead and delete her now. And then you'll just start reassigning all of your materials. Right, so you'll have to know, again, what materials went where, and you'll have to manually go through and reassign it. That is the only thing that's not the most fun about Pumkins, as you do have to manually reassign all the materials. There might be a more advanced option on the Pumkins tools that does this. I haven't seen it yet. So that's just it. You'll just have to go through and reassign your materials, and other than that, that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna delete that because I didn't change anything on the FBX. So once you got all your materials reassigned, then you're good to go. And that's how, you know, you would fix any clipping, or say you got in game and you're like, oh, I actually really want to add this shirt. But that means I have to go to Blender. I don't want to have to redo everything. You don't have to. You can just use the Pumkins tool, tell it, you know, your avatar is the new FBX, and then copy from the old one. And it'll copy everything over. All you have to do is just reassign your materials, and then you're good to go. And of course, make sure you can use your emulator to double check any toggles, make sure everything copied over correctly. And then if not, that's when you would want to start going into your animations and triple checking your animations. If you're looking at an animation, like let's say you're looking at one and it says bikini in yellow, that means that it's not registering what the bikini mesh is. So if you go back into Blender and let's say you change this from bikini to swimsuit, so it's now named swimsuit. I will show you. I cannot type either. So let's duplicate this, hide her. Okay. So if you ever see this, if you ever see yellow after you've done like pumpkins or something, that means that it is no longer registering what you originally told it to register for the animation. So either it's named something different, it's missing, and it might even be so simple as like there's a 0.01 added, or there's an extra space added, or a period that you didn't know. So do be very careful whenever you're using pumpkins and stuff, if you're changing, or in general, if you change anything named on your avatar, even in the armature, if you rename anything, it is going to mess up your animations. So try to keep your named things the same. So if we change this back to bikini, then it should, there it goes. It might take a little bit. Then it'll change back to this gray color, and that's how you know your animation's going to work. So whenever you, I've had it happen that whenever I've done pumpkins before, for some reason I, you know, must have clicked something in Blender or something, and my armature is now labeled armature 0.01. And none of my toggles would work, and I was racking my brain. I was like, why isn't it working? And I went to a server and I asked for help, and they were like, well, it's because your animation's looking for armature, and this thing is registered as armature 0.01. So just a little thing to kind of keep in mind. So that's how you can do your, you know, your quick changes out of Blender, and you need to maybe do some clipping fixes or add something to your avatar, and do your last changes. The last thing that I wanted to do was set up our descriptor and then do our uploading. So for your descriptor, which I had said in a previous video that I wanted to do this at the very end because it's kind of like the last thing. Whenever you have your descriptor, your lip sync, you can just auto detect. And this is looking at the body. We actually have a head mesh, so we'll drag that in there. And you want to change it to Visine Blend Shape. It's supposed to autofill. It doesn't always autofill. Normally it'll autofill. Sometimes if it doesn't, it's okay. You'll just kind of play a matchup. So this is SIL. FT. And you always want to make sure that these are the VRC.V. And if you are going through and you don't see, whoops, that's K. If you're going through and you're not seeing a specific letter, then that means that your head mesh is missing it. I would suggest reaching out to the creator. There is a way to fix it with cats, but cats is finicky. I know a lot of creators absolutely despise it and won't recommend using it. Like I've said before, haven't had any issues with it. But I would suggest reaching out to the original creator because it might be something that they need to update on their head. But you should have everything, again, VRC.V. It should autofill. Sometimes if it doesn't, just play match everything up, and that's it. So your lip sync is now set up, so she'll talk whenever you talk. I look. This one can be a little finicky. Let me change that back. So this one can be a little finicky. I've had some issues where there's like these two eye ones, and then I, for some reason, tend to run into this issue with male heads more than anything. There will be another one that will say eye left and eye right, so you might have to just double check to see which one is the one that you need to use. It should be the _L and the _R though. So you'll drag those in, and then to kind of record these, which is what, you know, you set this up so that your avatar just kind of idly like looks around and should look at cameras and things. You go into preview, and as you can see, it turned on these little like spinning parts for her eyes. So this is for looking up, so I'm going to grab this one and just drag it up a little bit, and it's recording it. Preview for looking down. And you can also drag here if that's easier for you. I prefer dragging this way. So, and you can go like crazy, and just keep in mind that most of the eyes are kind of on this mesh here, so you don't want to go super far. And then looking right. Okay, so your eye look is now done. Eyelid type is going to be a blend shape, and you'll set that also to you'll set that to your head, and it's going to default looking like this. So for blink, we have, well, that's set for blink L. I don't know why it's titled that, so let's do happy blink. And then for looking up, not all heads have these, but Zenpia does include it for looking up and, or is it looking down? So that whenever she looks down, her eyelids actually follow, if you can see them moving just slightly. And those aren't necessary, but they just add a little bit more immersion. So you can set that up. Now your eyes are done, so you have her talking whenever you talk, and her eyes will look and snap to any cameras, things like that. Playable layers, of course, we have our FX. Lower body you don't have to worry about, and then our expressions. So that's about it for the descriptor. I don't remember if I covered this before in a previous video or not, but for the view position, you can just hit this edit button and you can drag it. It's always, of course, between the eyes. I and a lot of other creators recommend not inside the head, but maybe just barely inside on the top of that nose right there. And that's where your eye port's going to be coming out of. So if you went to touch, you know, like in between your eyes, that's why you want it there, because you don't want it super up high, because then you're going to be looking at her, you know, from like way up here, and you're going to be able to see the top of her head. So you want to do that because that's registering where the center of your headset is. So that's how you kind of line it up to where you're able to view out of the avatar appropriately. So she is all set up now and ready to go. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to come to your assets. I'm going to delete this extra FX because we don't need it. You're going to want to drag and drop into your asset section, and it's going to create this, which is called a prefab asset. Now if you look, it's kind of hard to see, and I wish I could zoom in. This is your FBX, which shows all the mesh. It's grayed out, there's no materials. This shows the default of how she's going to load in, as well as all of the materials. You always want to make sure you have your prefab down there. There is a very, very common Unity error called prefab missing, and a lot of people might think that that's an issue on the creator side, but if you have made your prefab and you exported it like this, you're good to go. Unfortunately, it's a Unity bug, so if you're watching this video trying to figure out how to fix that issue, unfortunately it is just a Unity bug that happens more often than not. It's not universal for everybody. A lot of times what you'll try to do is make a new prefab, and it just keeps duplicating it, and it'll keep saying an error down here saying prefab missing. One of the best ways to get around that is by making a new Unity project, and if you've been editing the avatar, if it's not one you've made and you've just edited, then I'll show you how you can export out of that to make a new Unity project. Something else you could always try to do is doing what we did with Pumkins, which is throwing in, if you're making the avatar of course, throwing in the new FBX and Pumkins, everything over, and doing a new prefab from there. But more often than not, a new Unity project will fix the error for you. But if you're wanting to sell your avatars, do make sure you go ahead and drag in that prefab. It's going to help when it comes to opening the scene from the customer side, because it will load in that prefab, as well as it should help avoid that error of people having prefab missing. So you'll go ahead and do that. I like to go ahead and export just to be safe before I try to upload. So to export for your customers, or if let's say this is an avatar you bought and you've made some edits, you need to export it to make a new Unity project for some reason. Right click on assets and you're going to click export package. It's going to pop up this little box here. While that's loading in, something you want to be careful of if you're making this avatar to sell is not everything is allowed to be exported into a commercial package. So Poyomi shaders, they ask that their shaders not be shared commercially on their TOS, which you'll just want to double check everything that you're using. Poyomi, their TOS I believe is posted in their server. If you're using DPS, it's posted on Raliv's Gumroad page where you buy the DPS. So you'll just want to double check that. A lot of spring joints and like the AV3 creator, so I'm going to minimize this. They've asked that the sourcing not be included. So let's say, I think it was like a spring joint that I've had before. Some things ask that the scripts not be included, but you need to leave in the spring joint. So if it's something like that, you'll want to look for anything like this, like the DDL, or let's see, like, what would be a good example? Like any of these text things, the DDL, which that's scripting. There it is, the .cs. Anything like that, you'll uncheck that. And then, like, let's say this was for a spring joint. Per their TOS, let's say that they said, please don't include the script, just the asset. So you would want to look for anything that's something like this, the DDL, anything text related, anything that's not like the materials of the FBX. You'll just want to check all these dots to make sure of what it is, so that you can make sure you're only leaving in the mesh itself and not the actual scripting for how they made it. So Poyomi has asked that don't be included. AV3 Creator, they've asked that don't be included. This is not needed anyway for the toggles to work, because all that the AV3 Creator does is make the animations for the avatar. So whenever I create her page, I'll make sure to credit them and say, toggles created by, and then all of their information there. But their actual script is not needed. And the reason why we want to make sure that this is not included is, of course, to make sure that we're following their TOS, but also because we don't want any bad people to get the avatar and take the script out of Unity, which again, I'm not comfortable with sharing how to do that, but it is a thing. That's how ripping assets, unfortunately, is done a lot of times. Someone will buy the avatar and they'll rip it out of the Unity package, and then they'll use it invalidly because they never bought the asset. So you want to be very careful of your add-ons that you're using, like your shaders, AV3 Creator, DPS is asked that not be included either. Locomotion fix, that is needed for the avatar to function, and WetCat has said on their TOS, like, that's fine to leave in because everything that is on there is needed. So just kind of keep minimizing all the folders to make sure you have everything. This is why whenever you buy an avatar, you see people say, okay, whenever you purchase my avatar, you need to import Poyomi, you need to import the DPS system, because the animations are there for it. The materials are set up to use Poyomi. So as long as you import it, then it's going to register that that's now a part of your project whenever you've purchased the avatar, and it'll let the avatar work as intended. Now, if you don't import Poyomi or you don't import DPS and your avatar uses it, it's not going to function. It's just not, the DPS isn't going to be there, it's not going to work, the animations are now empty, and the shaders aren't going to show up as intended. If you're trying to use a different shader, okay, just know that that can potentially cause a lot of issues with toggles, because toggles use materials to function. It can cause issues with, of course, the general lighting of the avatars, like maybe the face and head now don't match because Poyomi has specific setups. Any shader. So just be aware whenever you're buying an avatar or you're selling an avatar that leaving things out of the package is necessary per TOS, and that is why the sellers ask that the people import it so that the avatar functions properly. So, sorry I kind of went on a tangent, but you're going to want to uncheck mark, of course, anything that the script is not allowed to be sold in, and just make sure that leave a note on your page whenever you sell your avatar. Please import this into your project for the avatar to function. Of course, the materials, that's a folder we made of all the PNGs and everything used for the assets, so that's perfectly fine. That's all of her materials to function. The toggles, of course, that's fine. The FBX and the prefab, you want to, of course, make sure those are in there so that the avatars, in the Unity project. So you'll hit export. It automatically imports like in the middle of your Unity project. It doesn't have to save here. So I'm going to come out and find her actual folder, which is here. This is where I've kept all of her stuff. Okay, and you can title it whatever you want to, and then you hit save. And you're noticing it save types as .unity package. That's what you're going to want to make sure that you're exporting if you're wanting to sell the avatar or make a second Unity project. So then that way, whenever you go make that new Unity project, or your customers go make a new Unity project to start to upload the avatar, that package is going to have that scene, the materials, the FBX. It's going to have everything that they need. And that's what they would drag into their new Unity project. So if you're doing a bunch of edits and you're like, man, I've been editing all her materials and stuff for hours and it's giving me a prefab error, I don't want to have to restart. I've had ton of people say that to me, and I'm like, it's okay, just export the package and then go start up your new project, and it'll keep everything that you've made your changes on. It'll keep all the changes that you've done. You just, re-import your stuff and you're good to go. So that's how you'll export. And then to upload, which I'm not going to let it fully go through on screen because it takes an eternity. You'll just come up here to SDK, hit show control panel, and it's going to pop up. It might ask you to log in, and if it does, of course, log in. And then you'll go to your builder section. Anything that has this stop sign on it, of course, will not let you upload. If it says something like minimap textures, okay, just auto fix that. You can auto fix most everything when it pops up like this. If you have an error that does not let you auto fix, then that's when you'll want to stop and like troubleshoot that error. But if it's anything other than that, it should have auto fix on it. Just click it. It's basically kind of just saying, Unity needs to do its like final setup for this to function. If it's this yellow triangle, you can now build and upload. This is not going to really affect the avatar. This is something about custom shader keywords. It's a Unity thing. It does not affect your avatar. It does not affect VRChat in any way. You can auto fix it and it'll pull it up. I'm not entirely too sure what custom shader keywords, like why Unity's upset about that, but it's basically just that we custom named all of our materials. You can look more into that if you want to, but again, it doesn't affect your avatar. It doesn't affect VRChat. And if you do see an error that you can't clear, always reach out for help. Because there's a million errors to try to cover in a video, and it is, again, hard to kind of prepare you for errors until we actually run into one on screen. I'm always more than happy to help as much as I can, and I do have a server partner. I will try to remember to put their info in the description of my channel, or of this video. One of my server partners recently started up a new server that is for all about learning Blender and Unity. So they have a ton of amazing teachers and amazing creators are in there. I'm in there myself. Some really, really great quality avatar creators and asset creators are in there. So I will try to link them down below if I can remember. And, you can always reach out somewhere like that and ask for help if you run into an error that doesn't let you autofix. Other than that, these are what we call the stats. So a lot of sellers and servers request that you have your stats included on your avatars for sell page so that people know exactly what they're getting. And this is the reason why this avatar is very poor according to VRChat's optimization standards. She has too high a fizzbone, she has too high poly count. I'm still learning how to optimize avatars. If I ever really truly learn it, then I'll make a tutorial video about it, but I'm not the best at you know, figuring out optimization, as well as some of these other creators. So most of my avatars are very poor. It just means that it's not a grain rating, so it's a little bit heavier. You know, if you're in the world of VRChat, you understand what that is. But if you're ever trying to sell an avatar and you look at the server markets requirements and they say please include the stats, like my server, I request that just so that people are aware, because there are some avatars out there that have 100 plus toggles and 10 particle systems on them, and I'm not exaggerating. I've seen avatars like that before, and that's totally fine, and that's totally cool, and that means the avatar can do a lot. But that also means that if it goes into a public world with a bunch of other unoptimized avatars, then it could potentially cause people to crash. And there's nothing wrong with making avatars heavy, and there's nothing wrong with buying avatars that are heavy. I just think it's fair that people know just how heavy an avatar is. So if you ever see something like that, this is what the server owner is asking that you screenshot. So you can leave that part there, it doesn't matter, but we need this part where it says overall performance, and it explains the poly count, skin mesh renders, material slots, fizzbone components, and fizzbone counts. So you'll just want to screenshot that and save that if you're planning on selling the avatar. It's just best practice to go ahead and include it if you can, since most servers do ask that be included on the avatar's page before you're allowed to sell in their marketplace. So that's a little rant about that. And then of course you'll click build and publish. If you want to just test it so other people can't see it, you're just going to jump into a test world in VRChat, and you're just going to kind of run it for yourself. You can use build and test. If you're wanting to upload it for other people to see, maybe take pictures of you or for you and your friends to test it or something, you'll click build and publish for Windows. Now, this is where I'm going to stop right there. I do have another video that I will try to link to this one. It's called How to Upload an Avatar with BCC. Since my editing programs have been giving me problems lately, I don't want to upload her right now because it takes a good 20 minutes for my computer to upload an avatar for the first time. But if you go see my other video, I show the upload page. I also explain how to get a prettier picture for your upload avatar so that it's not looking like this. You can have a custom picture if you want. So whenever people go to see what avatar you're using, it's one of those fancy pictures in game. But on that page, I also discuss the public and private buttons. So 9 times out of 10, you want to upload that avatar as private. That means that other people cannot clone it, even if your avatar cloning is turned on. Most creators TOS, if you're purchasing an avatar, is that it has to be uploaded as private. Some assets do not allow for public avatars, and there's nothing wrong with public avatars. So I have a public avatar world. Some of my free avatars in the past are uploaded to my world so people can try them before they potentially get them. But some assets, like this bikini, for example, we would need to go back to the original page to see if that asset is allowed to be used on public avatars. And there's a difference between public, free, nitro. It's all technically different things, right? So you want to double check the wording of the TOS, and if you're not sure, reach out to the original creator. As an avatar seller, more often than not, you're going to want it to go ahead and be uploaded as private, because if you upload it as public, that means one person can buy it, they go into a public world, and now 50 people can copy it and use your avatar without ever buying it. So I cover that a lot more on the other video. If you need to see that page, go ahead and head over to that video to go check that out. Unfortunately, I won't be able to get to that video or that page on this video since my editing stuff. I can't edit out the long upload time, and that would, double or triple the amount of time that this video is. So that's how you'll upload. That's how you'll export. Other than that, that's it. That's pretty much the ending of making an avatar for sale or editing an avatar, or whatever it is that you use this series for. I hope this helped people make avatars. If you have any questions, let me know down below, as always, or in my server. I will be making more tutorials, just kind of random tutorials moving forward. If you have anything you'd like to see in regards to avatar making, like, oh, how do I add a spring torn or something, let me know. I'll do my best to make it. I can't guarantee I'll be able to make every video, because I don't know everything myself. There are a few videos that I have uploaded that I'm probably going to redo, like the idle ears and tail, once I can get my editing stuff fixed up, so that we can, have that video up with seeing it work in game and things like that, as well as some of my first tutorials whenever I didn't have a better mic. I'll be re-recording those as well, but other than that, this was a fun series to make. This avatar will be out for sale at some point on my store. Depends on my health and my vacation coming up here pretty soon on when I'll be able to get her out. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to reach out in my server. You're also welcome to reach out in really any avatar server. Most of us are more than happy to help. A lot of us have mods and extra people that are extra knowledgeable to try to help you guys out. So if you run into any errors, just know that sometimes Unity does that, and it's not always universal. Unity being an individual program that you download, it can break for individual people. So if you run into errors, just know it's unfortunately normal with Unity, but there are lots of us out there that will be more than happy to help you. I'm going on a tangent because I don't feel good, and I'm sorry. Thanks for being here for this series. I hope this helped. And I will see you guys here within the next few weeks with some more videos. And I hope this helps you get started on your avatar creation journey. I think that's it. I'm really bad at endings, but I hope you have a good day. Good luck on making avatars, and see you next time.